About 10 years ago, I came up with a technique for modeling cathedral-style ceilings, like the ones you see here in this picture. And throughout the years, it's really come in handy on several projects. So I thought I could share the technique, and let's go ahead and just get started. So I'm going to jump over to Modeler, and we're going to build the basic building blocks, starting with the disk tool. So over in Create Disk, I'm just going to draw out a circle. I'm not going to give it any kind of depth. It's just going to start off as a circle. And I'm going to get rid of some of the points that I don't need, which will be these down here. Hit delete. I'm going to go ahead and center it with F2, turn symmetry on, and then I'm going to select these 2 points, which of course over here they'll be selected. H for stretch, and I'm just going to line those up. I'm using the stretch tool to move these, but by having both selected, I'm stretching them in place. Okay. And we'll zoom out a little bit, drag those down. So what I get is this nice tall wall and this arch. And actually, just so that it'll show up easier in this presentation, I'm going to shorten those a bit. Okay. So now that we got our basic shape, we just need to give it some depth. I'm going to go ahead and select the polygon. Not that you have to, but just so that I can explain. When you're extruding, let's go full screen. When you're extruding, normally you extrude away from the polygon normal so that the object is not inside out. But we actually want our geometry flipped in this case. So I'm going to go over to Multiply, Extrude, and I'm just going to extrude this out to get a long hallway. Okay, and let's go ahead and take a look at this. Full screen in perspective, and now as you can see we're kind of in a hallway. Okay, there's no reason to build the outside thickness of the walls. We're just focusing on this. Now I'm going to go ahead and just select this polygon, T for move, hold down Control to constrain it, and I'm going to make this a little longer. We can always shorten it later. F2 to center, and I'm going to turn symmetry off, select all of the geometry, T for move, and I'm going to copy, paste, and I'm going to move this over to here. Now I could copy and paste and move it over here as well, but to make sure that it's the exact same distance, I'm going to use the mirror function, which is Shift V, in for numeric, and we'll mirror it across the X, and we'll have the center be 0, 0, 0. Okay. So now I have 3 identical little hallways. I'm going to copy all of them and paste them into layer 2, put layer 1 in the background, and with my cursor right over the top view in the center, I'm going to hit R, which is going to rotate the geometry, F2 to center it. Okay, and let's just go full screen. So we've got these 3 hallways intersecting with the 3 hallways that are in the background. Let's Boolean those together. Let's merge those together. So Shift B, which is construct Boolean, so Shift B, and we'll use the union operation. Click OK, and let's take a look at what we ended up with. Now we can get rid of the floor polygons. I'm just going to lasso select those, hit delete, and let's take a look at what we've created. Okay, so we have those the ceilings that we were after. We've got the nice arches here, but let's dress it up a little bit more. Let's make it look a little better. First, we can turn smoothing on. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Q for change surface, and we'll call this stone smoothing, and we'll keep it gray for now. Okay, and what I'm looking at is this really hard edge here. Let me zoom in. It's a really hard edge. I'm not really liking that, and I want to round that off a little bit. So the first thing I need to do is, after I perform a Boolean operation, I really need to take the individual pieces of geometry and merge them together. So I'm going to hit M for merge and get rid of the 283 points that are right on top of each other. Okay, and now what I want to do is let's go into texture wire just so we can see. Now what I want to do is round off these edges. Now one thing that I have to know is that when you have open edges like I do on the bottom of this geometry, Rounder is not going to like that, and it's not going to work. So I'm going to select all the points on the bottom, hit E for Extender Plus, and just drag those down. All of this right here is just junk polygons. I'm going to get rid of those after I perform the operation, but this is going to allow me to perform the operation. Now the other thing I have to know is that I can't round all of the edges off at once, because if I try and round this set of edges and this set of edges at the same time, these points are going to be, let me zoom in just so we can see. If I were to go for, say, these edges and these edges, it would see that this point and this point make up this edge, and it would try and round those as well. So what I really need to do is make sure that I don't do two that are next to each other, but that's okay, because what I'll do is I'll get this guy, I'll get the one in the middle, I'll get the one right here, okay. I'll go ahead and select this one, and I'll select this one. So I'm getting all of them except these, which would be right next to each other. Now I'm going to deselect these bottom points, because remember, those are on the open edge. And let's just zoom in so we can see the settings that we're going to want to use. So I'm going to go over to Multiply, Rounder, N for numeric, and let's do 6 rounding, and let's just increase these a little bit. Okay, let's do a nice even number, 200. Okay, and that looks much nicer. Instead of this hard line, I'm getting this nice rounded corner, but I'm not finished. I need to go ahead and do the other ones. So it'll be a little easier to see which ones we need, because this looks thicker. Well, it's because it's got 6 polygons instead of 1 sharp edge. So I'm just going to lasso select. I'm using my right mouse button to lasso select, and I'm just going to lasso select the remaining areas. Okay. Get rid of those. Remember, that's a big one. You don't want to try and round on an open edge. Okay. And we should be able to just use the exact same settings. So we'll just go over to Multiply, Rounder, N for numeric, and that should work. So we'll commit to that. And now all we have to do, well, unless you want to keep them, I'm not really liking the look of this. It depends on the kind of pillars you're looking for. But I'm going to go ahead and remove all of this geometry, okay, which means it's also going to reduce this small stuff down here, but that's good. That's what I want. Okay, and so we'll take a look. And so now I have those ceilings that I was after, right? And much nicer columns. Now, if you want it to look more like the image we were looking at, well, all we have to do is the geometry for the columns is raise it up and build one of these pillars here, and it looks like in this image we've got several different styles, but you can build as many as you want and tack them down here. So you would just go and select the points that make up the columns there. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the geometry along the edges just by lasso selecting it. We could raise those up as far as we think we need to. Okay, cap them off and build whatever ornate columns you want to sit underneath there. But that's just a quick look. I've used this technique for years, like I said. Hopefully this will get you started, and you can go and start adding more and more detail as you'd like.